Okay, so it is Street Talk time for this week's podcast. Not very much in terms of storylines this week. I think some of them are kind of bundled together. So the first story might be have a few different threads that will eventually separate out in coming weeks. But we're going to start off with the aftermath of last week's Super Soap Week. Did it live up to the excitement of Stephen Reed getting bumped off? We will see. This storyline this week is a tribute to Stephen. The storyline title for it, I'm calling it Reed Hit and Weep.
Good.
Gemma's still in a narc with me because I just slagged off
not the
autumn.
best time of the year. What a stupid
Okay,
comment.
it is. If I say it is, will you be in a good mood with me now?
No.
Oh, please.
Next.
Read
Next.
Hit and Weep.
Next.
Or Whoop if you were happy with him being dead. Ryan and Cheating. It's going to be the Ryan... It sounds like lying and cheating.
Okay.
That's not too bad. Ryan and Daisy snogging it out and more this week. I'm not happy with them this week at all. Cold Hard Cash. It's going to be my Bailey storyline title. I got an almost little upturn of Gemma's mouth there. I think there was a smile there. Ed's going to be ripping off the corpse of Norris Cole, Gemma, in his quest to whatever it was he was trying to afford. I can't even remember.
Well, Malcolm Hebden appeared in the Barbara Knox documentary that was on the 13th of October. We didn't get to watch it last week because we were too busy recording for you guys, but we did watch it in the meantime.
We'll talk about that later. That's
and it was
gonna be
really
part
good
of the
fun.
cabin. It was good, yeah. And then Lee lurches off is my final
I'm really
storyline
mad.
of the week.
Why did he go?
Yeah, I mean, how many episodes did
Can't
Lee...
stick it out.
It was, what, 6 episodes?
Rubbish.
5, 6 episodes? We were saying, we want Lee to stay in it forever, but oh well.
I would love to see Lee with Todd and
George
together. I think it'd be funny.
Yeah, a little spin-off.
But
I'm
you
sure
just
they could have a lot of fun with that.
Quit too
He
soon.
might be back, you never know. Right, so Gemma, as our resident Stephen Reed fangirl, would you like to take the reins and say, what happened next? Did Tim survive?
No. Right. Let me
You're going to
tell
give us
you.
the alternate history of what happened.
Okay, so first of all, shout out to Todd Boyce, who we profiled along with his character Stephen Reed in our bonus episode this week. We talked all about Stephen's long history in Coronation Street that culminated in my favourite hit of the entire history of Coronation Street, where he killed Tim. That's right, everybody. Tim is dead. We will not be talking about his character from now on because he is persona non grata. He is
Our poor
deceased.
Canadians that listen to this before they watch the episode.
Under the ground. Poor Sally. What will she do? Widow. I don't know.
And
Don't
also
care.
Stephen's not really dead, it turns out.
Well, if you want to go by what actually happened, he's not dead, but in my heart,
Fun to imagine, eh?
he's been dead for years.
Could I also say a big thank you to Todd Boyce for listening to our character profile?
I know.
He tweeted us today, didn't he? Saying
Yeah.
he enjoyed listening
I
to
do.
it. So we enjoyed talking
It just
about
cements my opinion that Todd Boyce is by far
Top
the best
bloke.
person who's appeared in Coronation Street for a long time.
Right, come on then, Gemma.
As,
What has
as
happened?
Stephen Reed, the best character.
He's gone, Gemma. You got to let him go.
I cannot. Okay, right. Seriously. Everybody listen. On Monday, Sarah and Michael are looking at this sad spot that Stephen died right out front of the florist's shop. No flowers. Weird, because you'd think, even though Tracy is a Barlow, that she'd be hawking flowers for
I don't think there's too many people that are mourning his loss. I think the closest that we got was Audrey, Sarah and Michael. I'm not even sure how much Gail really cares that her
I
brother's
don't think Gail
been
cares
killed.
at all. She's like, I'm
They're
the
just-
only child.
they just-
I'm the only child.
Oh yeah, double Christmas presents for Gail this year.
I just think I want to hark back to the early years of Coronation Street, where if a baby was announced, they would, scores of people would send in hand knitted baby booties to Granada Studios. Why did we not get like an entire bed of flowers outside of ITV? I don't know.
Because you haven't been paid yet this month.
No, I know. I've got to wait. Listen.
Well, yeah.
Listen, Todd, I've got to wait to the first.
I don't know when we're going to be going up to the Coronation Street tour next, but I'm sure you'll be able to pay tribute to him when you go at Rosamond Street. Don't worry.
Oh, Stephen.
Come on.
Sorry.
Get over it.
Who's going to miss him, they say. Sarah goes off and Craig comes along. He wants to speak to Michael because Tim is still missing. Because he's dead.
Still in a boot.
At home, Sally is desperately missing Tim. And Elaine tries to reassure her, but Sally says he's been away for 2 nights.
There was a lot of confusion over the time scale of this. I noticed on social media this week. Lots of people saying, "How did Tim survive in the boot for so long? He's been in it for a whole week at this point. Surely he would have run out of oxygen or starved."
No, you don't run out of oxygen in a
That's
in a
what I would
car
have thought
boot.
as well. But
Was
no,
it
he
3 hours air? Is it that right? 3 hours oxygen, air, 3 days water, 3 weeks food, and then you're dead. I think it's a rule of 3.
I don't know whether
There's
you
some
can
kind of
survive
rule.
without oxygen for 3 hours.
Well, if you take a big breath, I mean, is it 3 minutes then?
Probably.
3 minutes? I don't know. There's definitely some kind of rule whereby in the power of 3, you are dead.
But anyway, you're not supposed to really think too hard about the time ever when you're watching Coronation Street because, well, I've talked about my feelings about that quite a lot in the last couple of years.
3 minutes without breathing, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food.
There we go.
I just looked it up because you guys, I care about you. Okay, don't spend 3 minutes without air.
How's Tim doing, Gemma?
He's fine.
He's fine, hooray. Good old Tim. He's got his hands free, hasn't he? He's got the tie from round his hands.
So, can we go back to last week when this bloke with his dog was walking in the Greg Woods and he came across the taxi that had Tim's alive, sadly, body in the boot, and he just didn't do anything about it? What was this scene for? This man, is he a Conversation Street listener? If so, I salute you, sir. You knew that Tim was in there and you didn't tell anybody. Good for you. Do you not think this is weird? Why did they even have that scene?
I don't know. Yeah, I know
this
that.
man was just like,
just
walking the dog, here's a taxi, that's just totally normal. Keep going, don't want to ask any questions because...
Yeah, he's
why?
like the anti-Good Samaritan in that scene, wasn't he? I would say he's a good Gemaritan because he let Tim just rot there for a little bit longer.
Anytime you let something happen that is negative on Coronation Street for the drams, you're a good Gemaritan. Anyway, Tim's freed his hands and he's like, help, I say. Audrey's in the cafe with Sarah later saying that after the accident, Sarah should be resting because, you know, she was held hostage, etc. And Sarah tries to tell her that it wasn't an accident, but then Peter comes in and asks Audrey how she is doing. And this is when Audrey starts in, "Have you killed my son? You threatened him." Because she walked in on them, didn't she, while they were having this fight at Elaine's flat.
Yeah. Well, this is I think why Peter was so determined to run into Stephen last week, because he was really knocked off that he had his chance there. He had Stephen, on his back. Well, little did you know he could have been bludgeoned with the trophy if he'd have tried to get any closer. But he could have offed him there or something, but he didn't. So when he saw him in the middle of Rosamond Street, he saw red, and then, well, he went, which is not what you're supposed to do when you see red. Green is for go, Peter.
Yeah,
I thought you might have known that as a taxi driver.
Exactly. So Audrey says you did it on purpose. And I'm really interested. Is this going to end up as a trial? I don't know, but Audrey would definitely...
I think there's a lot to talk about whose side who was on later, so we'll come back to that.
Ed's trying to tell Michael it's not his fault. Stephen took the money from the underworld because we all remember that he pretended he was on the phone. Stephen pretended he was on the phone to Carla and tricked Michael into giving him the code for the bank transfer. We still don't really know at this point what's happening with this money because it's a bit in limbo.
I think Carla said something on one of the days, maybe Tuesday's episode, like the police are trying to get it back or they're trying to figure out where it is or something at the moment. But the fact that Michael did give it willingly to Stephen is surely going to come up somewhere because
I'm sure
he didn't
it will
technically steal it, but then you could say that Peter didn't technically kill Stephen. Well, that's what some people are saying anyway.
Carla put it in nicer. Anyway, so Michael says he's going to plead for his job. So Jenny's still staying with Rita, and Rita tells her, you're going to have to let this sink in. You got to get on with the rest of your life. And then Peter comes over, and Rita and Daisy are heaping praise on him for killing Stephen. But Jenny doesn't join in. She's kind of a bit subdued. And I'm thinking here, last week I said, I'm pretty sure Stephen said something to her. And this is when I'm thinking, it's got to be more to this. I'm sure he really did say something. So she kind of looks down in the dumps. I mean, and we don't pick this up until a bit later.
It's understandable. Jenny had fallen for this guy, hadn't he? And despite what he had been, it is probably quite difficult to switch your feelings off for someone completely. The guy that she had planned to spend a brand new life with, move to Thailand with, has been mown down in cold blood here. So even though she realises that he is, he's not exactly whiter than white, I do get that she's not,
well, she's
not singing from the rooftops and doing cartwheels.
She knows something happened that nobody else knows. Gail goes to see Sally to ask for news on Tim, and I enjoyed this scene because we know that Gail and Sally are supposed to be busy mates. Gail is Stephen's half-sister. Sally is missing Tim, who has been kidnapped by Stephen. So there's definitely tension going on here. Sally's not in the mood to talk to her because she's like, your brother killed my husband. I can't believe you didn't realise again that you had a serial killer in the family.
It's about, once or twice a year, Coronation Street likes to remind us that Gail and Sally are friends, and probably about half of those times, the only reason that they remind us that they're friends is so they can have them fall out for a bit.
Yeah. So Gail says, look, I feel stupid, but more than anything, I care about you. You can tar me with his brush if you like, but I'm not him. And so they kind of make friends and have a little discussion. But meanwhile, Tim is in the boot of his own taxi and he's managed to find the emergency release mechanism. He keeps himself out of the boot. He gets up, he walks around, he gets in the driver's seat, grabs a bottle of water. He has a little drink, but there's not enough water in there. He's very sad. I wish he died, but he didn't. Meanwhile, Carla is...
Wouldn't that have been a twist if he'd somehow winded up killing himself in the middle of his rescue attempt? Well, yeah, because that was the thing. Throughout the whole of last week's episodes, we knew that Tim was going to be fine. We didn't know. We were not. We had no.
Let's just say
thoughts about the fact that he would die. But
most people in this country know if you're in the woods, you're not. You got to. I don't want to besmirch victims of horrible, sad events that have happened, but if you're in the woods and you die, something really bad has happened. It doesn't normally happen that you just die in the woods. If you walk, you're probably about 2 miles away from a road.
You'll find civilization pretty quickly.
And also, there's a man walking his dog last week. You can't be that far in the sticks.
The thing is with Tim last week, he was pretty badly beaten up, wasn't he? He was strangled, he was suffocated, he was whacked round the head with a pole. So the fact that he survived this is already a bit of a stretch of the imagination. So it could have been that he just couldn't exert himself and passed out, mere metres away from Coronation Street. But they decided not to go down.
I would definitely say, if you've been beaten half to death and you escape from a trunk of a car, I can understand. If you die, that's tragic. But really, I've just looked this up. The most remote place in the entire country of England is 2.4 miles from a road. If you die and if you're like Tim was, just walking about going, oh, I've got a headache, and you die 2.5 miles away from a road, I'm going to say it's kind of Darwin's rule. No offence. Yeah,
no, he's fine. They had put a bit of drama in it, didn't they? But as soon as he started walking about, it's like he's going to be absolutely okay. It's just funny that the main injury that he sustained, or the main consequence of him having all these horrific things happen to him last week, is that he's getting flashbacks.
Yeah, he gets flashbacks.
I'm not saying that mental health isn't important or anything, and poor old Tim's definitely suffering.
It's very important.
But he's had a very lucky escape, considering all the physical abuse that Stephen put him through last week.
It's very important, but not necessarily I want to see it from Tim on Coronation Street.
No.
Yeah, so I mean, I know that people die of exposure, etc., etc., especially if you're up a mountain or you're in some kind of horrible situation. But in England, I just wanted to make it clear to people that aren't necessarily from the UK, we don't really live in a country where you can't just walk.
That's why there aren't any British horror movies
straight along the road. You might just get to safety. It's probably like a McDonald's or a Greggs.
Whenever I hear the phrase being dying of exposure, I always kind of think that you've been flashed to death.
It's like,
By a guy in a dodgy trench coat.
died of exposure. Poor Brittany, I knew that would happen eventually.
Anyway, come on.
Right, so Carla can't believe that Peter wants to go to work on Monday because he's a taxi driver. He ran a man over. Does it feel like in good taste? I'm not sure. But Peter says, I didn't mean to kill Stephen. And Carla kind of gives a look like as if to say, I would have done it. Well, she doesn't necessarily believe it.
She was there, wasn't she? She saw that Stephen had dropped the bottle before Stephen put his foot down. So she knows. She just doesn't maybe want to admit it to herself and him at the moment.
This is a very intriguing angle for this story to go in. So Sally, Gail and Elaine are drinking tea in Sally's lounge, and Elaine can't believe she's engaged to a murderer. And Gail's like, listen.
We've all been there, love.
Only once. First time. Elaine says Tim is only in trouble because of her. Obviously feels sad because of that. I mean, Gail can't really relate because David's not got in trouble with the law because she was shagging a serial killer.
Very true.
I don't know, or could you say that was everything that happened post Richard Hillman? Anyway.
Did Richard Hillman even get a mention this week? It feels like... Is it the elephant in the room or something? Is everyone just too polite to really rub that in Gail's face? Surely there's enough kind of gossips. Like Sean coming around then going, oh, done it again then, Sal. Not that Sean knew Richard or anything, but... is it just like kicking someone when she's down to say, yeah... Once, if you're married to a serial killer once, Gail, fair enough. Anyone could make that mistake. But to have another one in your family and you're still not noticed, got to be a bit dense to that.
Tim finally manages to get the radio working in the taxi, contacts Peter, who happens to be at work, as we said earlier, and they need to call the police about Stephen because he's murdered someone, says Tim. He doesn't realise that everything's gone down last week and that, sadly, Stephen is already dead.
Yeah, it takes a while for Tim to find out that Stephen's kicked the bucket, doesn't it?
Yeah, quite a few days. So Peter asks Tim where he is, but he doesn't know. And so Peter drives off to try to find Sally so he can talk to him. Meanwhile, Peter gets to the door at number 8 and tells Sally, look, I've got Tim on the radio here. Come and speak to him. So they all rush out to the road where they can talk on the radio in a taxi, and Tim and Sally say, I love you. But Tim says, I don't really know where I am, and in some woods, and then he drifts in and out of consciousness, and Sally's left going, Tim. And she wants to go to the police station so she can do an appeal so everybody can find where Tim is.
Quite funny on ITV3's classic Coronation Street at the moment. Deb's thinking of him, and I'm a few days behind, so I don't know. I can't remember how far it's gone, but Deb's thinking we're investing in GPS for all the taxis and streetcars. And 20 years later, they've clearly still not got them there. Otherwise, they'd have been able to locate Tim straight away.
Deb's like, see?
It's just like, there's so many stories that you can't do on soaps these days because of mobile phones, or they have to have some convenient excuse for why somebody didn't have a mobile with them. Like, in reality, it'd be like, let's just have a... Eileen, where's Tim at the moment? Oh, over there. Right, let's go.
He's in the woods. He's been there for 5 days. How strange.
Just hanging out with Rick Neelan in the woods.
Maybe he's camping. Anyway, Tim starts walking away from the car to find help. So when Sally gets to the police station, DS Swain says, I'm glad that Tim's okay, but I can't spare resources to do an appeal. And I also don't want a gang of amateur sleuths tramping around.
We've already got our own amateur sleuths. Here's Craig now.
She looks at Craig. And Sally says, she tells Sally, you've got to trust us. We're going to find him, don't worry. Tim's climbing a slope and I don't care about Tim. He's just making a big fuss about being sad, and he finds his way to a road and gets
You're making a big fuss about being sad that Tim's not dead. It's all making fusses about being sad, Gemma.
Tim could have died, but he didn't. He finds his way to a car later. But anyway, Peter and Gail turn up at the station as well, and Peter's trying to defend himself about killing Stephen. And Sally says, Stephen dropped the bottle. And Peter says, no, I don't think he did. I wouldn't have run him over if he dropped the bottle. And this is really interesting because does the whole case revolve around whether Peter truly knew that he dropped the bottle? And does that matter? This is such an interesting story. I really, really think that a lot of people have decided one way or the other about whether they think that Peter should have killed Stephen. And I think you need to just drop the idea about whether you think Stephen should have died or not and think about, should Peter have driven the car into him? That's the key question. Did Peter know, or is he lying to everybody and himself when he says that he thought he dropped the bottle?
He's saying, Jenny was still in danger.
Yeah, he could have killed anybody. And he said, look, I had a split second to make my decision and the right person lived. So DS Swain is listening to this. This is not a conversation that she's supposed to be privy to.
I loved it. She was just there on the stairs, wasn't she? Just heading up to Chariot Square.
And she's like listening, going, interesting. So he's saying, I picked the right person to live. Now that is certainly a judgment call based on who do you think was more innocent, not was it correct to run him over? Because those are two different calls. Like, did Stephen deserve to live is a separate conversation to, was Peter right to run him over in that precise moment of time? And the fact that Stephen said, I picked the right person to live, makes me think he's quite aware of the fact that he knew when he ran Stephen over that he wasn't holding the bottle. I love this. I really think this is fantastic. This is such a cool story for Peter Barlow's like the tale as he goes on. He's got his wife, girlfriend, wife,
Yeah, they're married.
Carla.
I remember him face planting on the cobbles on his wedding day.
Okay.
Because of his alcoholism.
Carla's been the victim of Stephen, and then Stephen. We don't have. This is the thing. Just to remind everyone, we don't have the what's it called when you kill someone for killing people?
Murder?
No, what, like capital punishment.
Yeah.
We don't have that in this country.
Right, yeah.
You can't just go, well, just saving the taxpayer money by running them over before we hang them to death. You can't just pick to kill somebody because you think they're a right arsehole.
Yeah.
Because if you could, I've got a list of people.
The bit with Swain listening was brilliant because it's not just that Peter that she heard, it was everybody else having this conversation that they didn't realise they were being listened to. So what they were saying there was their true
completely
unfiltered thoughts about what they experienced on the day. So
yeah, I love it. Sorry, I love it.
Usually I hate people happening to be listening in, but this was juicy.
They were in the I was going to say petrol station, police station. As much as I hate to have lost Stephen, R.I.P., rest in peace, too soon, love him, up to heaven for sure. The fact that this has turned into it's not really it's kind of a whodunit in the same way as Who Pushed Ken. There's no, like, it is a murder, but it's also a question of, did he know or not whether this was justified? I don't know. And this is really going to separate people.
Well, it hasn't it? We've seen online already this week. People have taken sides. You put a poll up on our Twitter the other day, didn't you? And people definitely seem to be coming down more on the side of Team Barlow than Team Platt.
Yeah.
Definitely, there are some people that are saying, "Well, Stephen deserved to die," which isn't the point.
No, that's not the point.
But I think that they've done a really, really good job of getting people talking about this.
Yeah, definitely. I love
the story
this.
could have ended here.
Yeah, really
but
could
like
have
you
done.
said last week, you were kind of complaining a little bit last week in the podcast, I thought, about it becoming Peter's story now and Stephen, who cares about him anymore? But yeah, getting people to pick a side is good for any soap story.
Yeah, definitely. I right, genuinely, if you've got an opinion on this, I want you to think to yourself, am I biased here about my allegiances to one or the other character? Because I just cannot see. I know I'm biased to Stephen, but he's dead. But I, even before they revealed a lot of the details here, I thought to myself, Peter's run him over because he didn't like him.
That, to me, that's cut and dry exactly what happened.
He dropped the bottle.
He was stepping away from Jenny.
Is your like thought that Stephen should die because he already killed 3 people?
I've seen lots of people
and,
saying he deserved to die.
Right, I'm just going to say, in defence of the Stephen haters who think that Peter did the right thing, just because Stephen said, I won't hurt you, and he dropped the bottle, does not mean he's not dangerous. He has proven himself to be violent and homicidal, and who's to say that if he had got away in the car, if Peter had let him leave, if he got in the car and driven off, who's to say he wouldn't have killed again? But you can't. That's not how it works in this country. We don't just kill people because they're horrible. Because there's loads of people that, like I said, there's like a list. I'm sure King Charles has got a list of people he wants to bump off in case.
I've just found it really interesting to watch, seeing Stephen kind of become the victim throughout all this now, and Swain saying you killed Stephen Reed, even though she knows. I mean, that's like, we don't know what Swain thinks about it. Is she kind of glad that he did it personally? I'm kind of glad that we don't know. As a police officer, her job is to uphold the law and, you know, catch the criminals and catch the murderers. Yep. So whatever she thinks of Stephen, it's her duty to find justice, ascertain whether or not he was murdered justly or not. There's such thing as just murder. So yeah, so good. I'm very much enjoying
Love
this.
Swain. I think she's fantastic. So Swain gets Sally into the interview again, and she asks her whether she thinks that Peter done this on purpose because he has a grudge. And Sally's like, no, I'm not in the mood. I want you to find Tim. And then when they leave, Craig says, oh, Tim's been found. Great. Sally and Tim go to the hospital Sally and Elaine go to the hospital where Tim is, and Faye's like on the phone going, oh, I can't come because I'm on Strictly, but is he all right? And Elaine's like, don't bother, darling, you're doing really well. He's fine. And Tim's in triage. For some reason, he's there for ages. It doesn't make sense. I'm an expert now. I've been to A&E twice this year. And I can tell you that if you come in because you've been kidnapped and bonked on the head by a serial killer, I don't think you're going to be in triage for more than 5 minutes. Because that's how long I was in there, and I only had a bad appendix. Peter comes home. He's fuming at Carla because Sally has turned against him, and he tells her that Sally's saying Stephen dropped the bottle. And Carla says, you know, I think he did. And look, calm down, because Peter's saying, no, I ran him over because everyone was in danger. Like, I saved Jenny's life. He was going to kill her. And Carla's trying to calm him down because he's got these doubts now in his mind that he'd never had before. Because I can totally also believe that you have a laser beam focus, and you don't necessarily see the things that everyone else sees.
I think it's that. I don't think that Peter knew for sure that he dropped the bottle. It was obvious to anybody watching the scene. We heard it, we saw it smash, we saw it as the viewers, or we heard it as the viewers. But I think if you are going to make that split-second decision, if you're in Peter's position, yeah, maybe you don't notice it. But, in my opinion, that doesn't change the fact that you can't say, oh, sorry, I didn't know, because ignorance is no defence,
well, that's a good question,
Peter?
Isn't it? Like, how much is he to blame? It's really it is really interesting. I do really like this story. You can swap out Stephen for any number of incredibly sinister and terrible figures who have killed or tortured insert number of people here. How much are you going to give them? How much do you owe somebody a second chance? Like, are you going to sort of stop and go, let me just assess the scene here? But equally, Peter, I don't know, he had to really put his foot on that accelerator to get to that speed. Really, it's really fascinating. I would love people to write in and let us know what you think. Really, really, please do. Anyway, so DS Swain and Craig come to the door as Peter and Carla are having this discussion, and Swain tells Peter that they suspect he has not been entirely honest, and they arrest him for the murder of Stephen Reed. And Craig's there going, I'm in charge, and he leads Peter away.
I've seen lots of people online not very impressed with the fact that Craig's going around just cuffing his neighbours. And I don't know anything about police and whether that would happen, but I've been told by enough people that's probably not quite realistic.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, When we were kids, I think this was still a fleeting memory, resigned to the annals of history, but you're supposed to have a Bobby on the beat who was local to the area.
Yeah, we did it. We had PC Lord was
Did
our
you
word.
really?
Yeah.
We didn't have this.
And he came into our school and did talks and put the frighteners on us and stuff.
Okay, if you murdered your mum, would he have arrested you?
Maybe. But he's not. He wasn't like our friend in the same way that Craig is.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this is one
if
of these
you're going to
things...
make a character a police officer in a soap,
Yeah.
clearly they're going to arrest the other main characters in the soap.
They're
not going
to
go off.
this.
So that's that's the bed that you've made for yourself. It doesn't really bother me at all.
I'm going to acknowledge the incredible annoyance of everybody who knows anything about police and in saying that this would never have happened, but also acknowledge the incredible deliciousness of having a copper living on the street who has to get involved in the nitty-gritty of all the police stuff.
Yeah, my biggest problem with it is that Craig just doesn't strike me as a particularly effective policeman, even when he was a uniform. And
Who do you think
as
would
a detective, even worse.
Write in, everybody. Who do you think would be the best character to turn into a police officer?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Good question.
Have a think about that one.
Right, have a think. On Wednesday, Sally is a bit wibbly in the wake of everything that's happened. Elaine's like, we've got to be strong for Tim. And the Barlows are gathered in the flat and Simon's there. He's like, what's happened? Nobody's told me. I'm going to pretend I know. He's saying, oh, my dad's a hero. He saved everybody. Why is everybody saying he's a murderer? And all the rest of everyone saying, got to sit tight and just see what
Ken's
happens.
there and Adam, I think. Maybe
So this
Danny
is the
wasn't, I can't
Barlows
remember.
versus the Platts, which is, it's not really developed into a proper family
Not yet.
feud.
It's early days.
I don't know if it will do. Anyway, Peter's lawyer's there, and this is the same one that Toya had when she killed Imran.
Yeah.
Which is promising news for Peter. And she says, look, just keep saying you saved Jenny's life and it'll all be fine. So Swain's asking Peter whether he remembers what happened and did he suspect that Carla dosed that Stephen dosed Carla with LSD, and what did it make you feel? Were you angry? Did you have a grudge? What were you doing on the 10th of October? Did you threaten him? And Peter's refusing to answer. And Peter's getting hacked off because he says, yeah, I did threaten him, but I didn't run him over because of that threat. It was an accident. I thought he's going to murder Jenny. I didn't want to kill him, but if I had my chance again, I think I'd do it. I'd kill him. And meanwhile, we get to see Sally and Elaine talking to Tim, and this is when Tim finds out that Stephen has died. He didn't realise he was trying to warn everybody about what Stephen might do. But I guess he's shocked. I can't really remember. Ken is with Audrey at number 8, and this was quite fun because these two kind of heads of the family are having this conversation about the fact that Peter's killed Stephen. So both their sons were involved in this fatal incident, and Ken says, I don't want this to come between us. Imagine. What do you think this is, Tudor England? So he says
felt at the beginning of the scene that they were both in agreement that this didn't need to turn into a war, didn't it? And they felt like they thought that they were on
in general they both agree that we shouldn't let this come between us, but when the details begin to surface and they don't agree on whether it was justified, they fall out.
That's when relations break down.
Yeah, because Ken's like, yeah, sorry my son killed your son, but your son was evil and you deserved it. And Audrey's like, no, get out. So Ken kind of leaves with his towel between his legs.
See, I would have thought, and I know that Ken, as the head of the Barlow family and the Barlow mafia, does like to close ranks, but I think that for him the truth is also very important, and sometimes Deirdre would say that Ken's stubbornness and desire for the truth to come out on top of everything else was one of his
kind of like Roy.
Yeah, in a way, but not quite so much as Roy. But I think that Ken maybe would want to find out more about what happened. But I don't mind if it's causing this drama between the two families.
Peter gets released from the police station, and the lawyer tells Carla that Peter's not been doing himself any favours by what he said about the situation.
No.
At the hospital,
not that I would do it again. That's probably not the right thing to say.
I'd do it
it's supposed to be
again.
no comment, Peter. Come on.
Exactly.
Have you seen any soap interview scenes?
At the hospital, everyone who was gunning for Stephen to kill Elaine is thrilled for the news that she imparts upon her son and daughter-in-law that she's going to stay.
I couldn't believe this. Not only is she not dead, but she's decided to stay. She does, as the episode goes on, she kind of ends up saying, well, maybe I'll just stay until you get better. But when she announced that, I was like, I cannot believe that they're doing this with her. What is the point? Elaine is not needed in this programme. I'm really sorry, Elaine fans out there. But that's just...
Anyway,
yeah.
The Barlows gather at the flat later and they talk to Audrey, and they talk about Audrey, and Peter's very defensive about the fact that he's not the bad guy in this. And Carla mentions that he threatened to kill Stephen, and Ken can't believe this. And Peter's feeling like everyone's attacking him, so he leaves.
Oh yeah, I forgot that Ken didn't know the full story before, did he?
Max finds Peter in Victoria Gardens, and this was quite interesting because Max is obviously, the sort of black sheep of the Platt family, and Peter's here, the sort of kind of golden boy, I don't know, of the Barlows, who's been accused of killing Stephen, one of the Platts, and so this meeting here are they the black sheep of the families? I don't know.
Oh, they are
he
at the
asks
moment.
Max asks him, how you doing? And, not all my family hate you for what you did. So this was quite interesting that Max is saying there's a bit of a divergence amongst the Platts about whether he was correct in what he did. So Carla and Ken show up, and Ken apologises for what he'd said earlier, and Carla says, this is, she kind of gives the party line. You saved Jenny's life. And this is going to be what they all use as Peter's literal get out of jail free card. He was saving Jenny's life. And that's the important thing. Tim's talking to Elaine later on and asking her if she really wants to stay. And she's like, yeah, I do. And you were right about Stephen all along, because she feels guilty. This is like a combination of a mother's love, but also the guilt that she kind of almost thinks she picked her lover over her son. She didn't realise it was going to get to this point in time, but she's the one who dated Stephen, and it really was the reason why Tim got so involved in this whole thing.
There's probably got to be a bit of guilt over the fact that she's just disappeared for the last few months, leaving Tim still in the neighbourhood with this serial killer.
Yeah, so he tells her that she deserves a fresh start and she should be selfish for once, and he's trying to get rid of her. I guess that
the whole thing with Elaine partly has been she has been kind of a bit annoying gooseberry to Sally and Tim for years, hasn't she? Tim does have obviously affection for her, but he doesn't need her hanging around and getting in the way of his and Sally's hanky-panky time.
Maybe Sally's had a secret word in Tim's ear going, get rid of your mum.
I love the scene. I can't remember which episode it was. Maybe it was this one. Maybe it was this scene where they talk about Elaine mentions the fact that she and Sally have got the same hairstyle, and Sally's like, not quite identical.
Not exactly the same. Yeah, this is great.
Sally gives Tim all the mothering he needs.
Yeah, for sure. On Friday, we get to see the beginning of Tim's flashbacks. And he wakes up on Friday with a start after a flashback, and Carla says she's going to go, this is a separate scene, Carla says she's going to go back to the factory, and Ryan at this point has moved back in with her, or he's going to. So she tells him that the police are going to trace the cash that Stephen stole so that she can get the factory back upon his feet. So at the factory, she tells Sarah.
I've just realised that in the notes of this, it still says Monday, Wednesday, Friday, even though it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Sorry,
you know what we're talking about.
So, £250,000 has been stolen from Underworld, and that's literally every single penny they had in their account. So, Carla tells Sarah on the final episode of the
Wednesday
week that she needs to go to sort this out. There's an order coming from Spain, and they've cancelled. So she has decided that she needs to go to Spain to get them, to beg them to keep this order open.
I think that she just wants an excuse to have a bit of a jolly. Is that right, Carla?
Listen, I need to drink 3 litres of sangria in one day.
Yeah,
and I don't want you to
pick up a little bit at the duty free on the way back.
Exactly. She's like, I need a massive Toblerone and I don't know where else to get it. So she's decided on Friday that she needs to go to Spain to save the factory. At the hospital, Elaine tells Tim that she's going to stay until he's settled, and she gets really upset that she was so gullible with Stephen, and Tim decides that he's...
Well, she relates it to Jeff. I mean, Jeff gets more of a shout out this week than Richard Hillman does, because at least Elaine has got the graciousness, or whatever the word is, to admit, oh yeah, what an idiot I've been. Yet again, I've been fooled by a man. But Gail's like, just don't mention Richard.
Don't bring it up. Bring it up. So, Tim decides he's going to make a bucket list of things that he wants to do before he dies, because this brush with death has been too much for him to handle. So I guess he can strike off married to 2 chicks at once already. I don't know what else he's got on there. Meanwhile, David's picking up Stephen's stuff from Rita's flat, and Rita tells him to give Audrey their love, and he leaves, and Rita gets emotional thinking about something.
Oh, it's the fact that she's still got Jenny. She feels bad for Audrey because even though I guess they're not on the same side anymore, or are they? I don't really remember. Jenny's thinking Audrey has lost her son, a son who she's only been able to spend half of his life with. Rita's thinking exactly the same thing with Jenny. I missed so much of Jenny's early adult life.
She's her foster mum,
yeah. I can't. I can't imagine what it'd be like if I was an Audrey.
Yeah, she gets emotional thinking about the fact that she's this mother figure to Jenny, and Jenny then she kind of gets this look on her face, and she says, "Rita, I've got to tell you something," and she kind of confesses that just before Stephen was killed, he told her that he wasn't going to hurt her. And this is a revelation to the viewers too, because we know that there was a little kind of hushed conversation, and then we hear the bottle drop, but we didn't know what was said. I'm
glad that it's been revealed.
Quickly.
This is not. It wouldn't have made sense to have kept it a secret.
It's not really, it's not the most incredible, amazing revelation. It's not something, look under these coordinates or something that's going to spin off a massively big storyline. It was literally, I'm not going to hurt you, which is what you kind of could have imagined he had said.
Yeah, so Jenny now, is this a week later, is this a few days later? I've lost track of time again. Don't think about it too hard. But Jenny's been carrying this with her ever since, hasn't she? Knowing that, well, according to Stephen at least, he wasn't a danger to her when he was mown down. And she's thinking, do I drop Peter in it here? I know the truth.
Every time Peter and Co are saying, I saved your life, Jenny didn't die because Peter killed Stephen before I had the chance. Jenny's thinking, but he said he wouldn't hurt me. And Rita says, I don't believe he meant this. And this is definitely something to think about here. Did he really mean that? Was he sincere? Because
you can say you don't mean to hurt somebody when you are about to stab them with a broken glass.
You can totally mean, like, I don't want to hurt you, or I wish this wasn't going to happen. But if something goes badly, I can totally believe that Stephen would have changed his tune quite quickly.
I did believe that Stephen had some affection for Jenny. I mean, yes, he was going to fleece her, but he looked really upset about it. That scene last week where he was standing at the sink and having a bit of a cry, I did feel bad for him.
Yeah,
he didn't go into this wanting to become a murderer. He's not the same as Phelan. His murders, apart from I guess the Rufus one, have been a bit of one bumbling mishap to the other. He would have liked nothing better to have retired with Jenny, the woman that he's been holding a torch for this past year. But on the other side, when he had her outside the Rovers with a glass to her throat, I wouldn't blame Jenny if I never trusted anything he said again.
No, absolutely.
He could have killed her there.
Yeah, I mean, it's all very well to say to somebody, if it's me or you, that's a different question to I don't want to hurt you. And if Stephen was up against it, I don't believe for a minute he wouldn't have sacrificed anybody, even Audrey, to try to get. And I also want to point out that I do think that Audrey and Stephen is a bit of a one-sided love there, because I don't think that Stephen cared as much about Audrey as she does about him.
He does love her, his mum, and he was saying to Jenny, I've all of this that I've done is trying to impress her. I wanted to make her see that, that...
Audrey,
that what I've achieved in my life. So he did care about what she thought, but yeah, on the other hand, he was... trying to fleece her. He tried to steal the money for her house. He nearly drugged her, earlier this year.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Jenny tells Rita this, and she says she doesn't want to get Peter in more trouble. So is she gonna confess?
I think that at the end of the day, it's going to be Jenny's word.
Court case.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a court case, and I think that this is going to be the decisive piece of evidence. I think she's going to keep quiet about this. It could even be that she does decide to keep it quiet, and it's Rita that gets up on the stand.
Rita,
can you imagine?
You old cow.
Rita
versus Audrey.
Well, no, it's Rita versus Ken, I suppose, isn't it here? Because Rita would be the one that was dropping Peter in it. Rita's word would send Peter to the gallows. Well,
nice.
At least.
I really like the way that this is incorporating some of the sort of legacy characters on the street.
Well, Peter is a legacy character, isn't he? He's I know he's been played by many actors over the years.
Yeah,
Chris Gascoigne has been him for over 20 years
yeah.
now. But Peter is one of the longest serving characters on the street, technically. So if this is culminating in him potentially leaving the show or going to jail, being sent down for murder or whatever, it's only fair that some of the biggest names on Coronation Street are also caught up in it. Jenny, Sally, Audrey, Ken.
Exactly. These are the characters that appeared on the, unfortunately, edited down COVID anniversary cast picture. Sally, all these. Sally's like the longest running character that was on that list, and everybody else involved is only had a greater.
I've been saying for a while that some of the characters that have been in it the longest do get underserved. Ian McLeod very much favours getting the young uns in, doesn't he? He's, for the last few years, it's been all teens all the time, it's felt. So now, if we do have a story that's going to have the real stalwarts of the street fighting it out about whether Peter did or did not deserve to be sent down for Stephen's murder, brilliant, is all I can say. I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
Absolutely fantastic way of pivoting this story into something that's incredibly dramatic and far-reaching. So good job, Coronation Street. Even though I don't know why you can't.
Stop mumbling. People are wondering what you're saying.
So Gail and David finds. This is funny. They find Stephen's will while they're going through his stuff, which includes a s'mores maker.
Oh yeah, you screenshotted that and zoomed in, didn't you?
I want this. You can buy it.
You have found it online
on Amazon, but it's £30. I don't think it's that good. I'm not going to buy it just...
I don't really see Stephen as a s'mores eater.
It's supposed to be a joke because, I don't know how much Canadians love s'mores, but it's a North American
I
thing,
think
isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe it was a sly nod to the fact that Todd
He's
Boyce
not
isn't
really
actually Canadian.
I mean, we don't really have s'mores here, do we? It's not a thing we do. We toast a marshmallow on the fire, but that's about it.
I would say that s'mores have risen in popularity over the past couple of decades.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure. But nobody's buying a s'mores maker. This is why he had to bring it over, I guess. Do you think Gabrielle was like, listen, Stephen, you owe me £200,000, but here's your s'mores maker?
Yeah, do you think that was part of the divorce settlement?
Yeah, probably.
I get the divorce. I get the s'mores makers, Gabrielle.
She's like, fine, I can get one for $10. He's like, it's 30 quid here. Anyway, Tim goes back home later. He's having more nightmares on the sofa. There's a shout out to Zombeezy, which was great because I've mentioned it a few times recently. Sally and Elaine tell him to go to bed and get some proper sleep, but he doesn't. And he's acting like a brave soldier, but he's clearly still quite affected by what's happened. And when Gail and David find this will from Stephen, it turns out he's left everything to Audrey, which again I'm really intrigued about, because surely that includes, if the police can't recover the money, that includes the £250,000 that he transferred from Underworld. So why would Audrey not give it back? It doesn't make any sense.
Maybe that's what'll happen. Maybe they'll just pass the parcel for a little bit and then.
Yeah, I can kind of imagine her being reluctant and saying, "Why should I give it back to you?"
I don't know how much
Stephen.
I don't know how much Stephen had that actually genuinely belongs to him that Audrey is going to inherit
what
now.
Does
because
that mean? Yeah,
he
great s'mores maker.
Like the Red Bank flat didn't
50
belong
pence.
to him. Has he still got a car anymore? I can't even remember.
So
she'll
maybe,
get some snazzy suits and that's about it.
Maybe this will be Michael's chance for redemption, because he's in limbo slightly following his disgrace in
Are you saying that Stephen is going to bequeath Michael to Audrey?
No.
And Michael is going to be her new prodigy.
Here's
Got a new trainee at the salon, it looks like.
Body. No, I'm just wondering whether Michael could sort of give a moving speech to Audrey to get her to give the money back to Underworld, and that might get him back his job and save everyone's jobs.
I would hope that Audrey isn't going to need a whole lot of convincing. Although maybe she will.
If it's Carla's
if she's giving it to
and Peter's business, she'd be like, "I'm not giving it back to you." But then again, Sarah works for Underworld, and that's her. But then if Sarah's going on the side of anti-Stephen, she's gonna.
No, it's Uncle Stephen, not Auntie Stephen.
I'm sorry, everyone.
Auntie Stephen.
Yeah. If Sarah doesn't support Stephen, then Audrey might take it in spite.
I think that Sarah, she did seem kind of sad that her uncle was dead.
Yeah, I know, but it's just an interesting thing to talk about. We're not going to really know until we get into the episodes next week. So Gail's worrying about Audrey, and David says, "Don't worry, she'll be fine." Then I hate this scene. Sally comes back and she and Tim balance their chakras, which involves balancing on his whatevers. And I don't care about that. Steve comes in the middle of this, and Tim walks down in his dressing gown, and Steve's come back off holiday, and they talk, and
it was just a load of silly, sexy, cliche kind of opportunity. They talk about having Tim playing pétanque or something.
What's that?
It's some French game.
They kept saying it.
Like
they just mean bowls.
Something. Yeah.
I don't care.
That was an unnecessary Steve appearance.
Cut that for Canada.
That was a definite cut for Canada scene, I would say.
Carla comes back to the flat and tells Peter she needs to go to Spain to salvage the deal. And
I was surprised to see Carla at this point, because it was like half an episode ago that Carla suddenly announced to Sarah, "I'm going to Spain now, goodbye."
She's like...
And when she came back, I thought she'd missed the plane.
Well, they have a really nice scene with Carla and Peter, which was very realistic. They had a little bickering session, and because she's like, "You've got a tone in your voice," and he says, "No, I don't," and then they kind of make up at the end, and everything's very sweet, and this is it kind of humanises their relationship, and she tells him she'll be back as quick as she can, etc, etc. So I really like they included that, and I hope that all the Carter fans enjoyed that one. And Shona speaks to David, and for some reason he's working at Audrey's, even though he used to work at...
I don't know where anybody works.
And he says they're fully booked because everyone wants the gossip on what happened with Stephen. And then at the final part of the episode, the final part of the week was that Tim is having a little nightmare about being suffocated by... Stephen.
Yeah, that's the other. I've got many problems with the fact that there's flashbacks. I would have thought that the flashbacks would have died with Uncle Stephen, but it seems like that Tim has taken over as the person who has the flashbacks. But he's not imagining. They didn't even bother to film flashbacks from his point of view. They're just literally playing clips from last week's episodes with a bit of a golden filter over them. So Tim is remembering what he looked like from above. It's completely and utterly unnecessary. Please, Coronation Street, stop putting flashbacks, stop doing your flash forwards, stop doing silly sound effects. It's really, really spoiling it. But it really is feeling at the moment that you can't go even a week without this experimental editing that really adds very little to the drama that couldn't be achieved by just some decent performances from the actors and decent scripts and everything.
They're all doing.
Yeah, they are all doing them already. So I don't need to see Tim imagining last week. It just feels like it's the showrunners going, hey, remember this, everybody? Remember how great it was last week? Doesn't need it. So how did you find this story as a follow up to all the big drama from last week? Did you find it a worthy follow up?
I enjoy the fact that it's such a high stakes story that's developed from Stephen. I still would have rather had Stephen in it longer and blah blah blah. We've spoken about it too much. I don't know why. I need to say it again.
Well, no, I just wonder, sometimes when they have these big weeks, the following week it just peters out, or it's just interview. There's a storyline title for you. Or it's just interview scenes and then it's over. I remembering when Pat got stabbed, the next week Hannah was just like, anyway, I'm going off, Faye's gonna go with her, and there didn't feel like there was a whole follow up, but this has literally spiraled off into a completely separate story, and I think that they've done a really good job of keeping up the momentum.
Can I say, I think that Faye is the secret mastermind behind all the serial killers on the street, because when the dust settles, she's suddenly conveniently nowhere to be found, even though she was pretty close to all the people involved.
Yeah, that's
the last
very
two
true.
times. Think about it. Is it a coincidence? Is she dancing her way to freedom? Good question. Thanks, Gemma.
Do you think that if Peter were to be found guilty of this, is Carla going to stick with him? Do you think that she would happily be married to a murderer?
I really do think that if they break Carla and Peter up over this, it would be a mistake. I can see them going on the rocks about this if she's questioning him and he doesn't appreciate it, but really they've got a really deep bond, which they explored a bit in the final episode this week where she goes off to Spain. There's definitely a real depth to their relationship that is I appreciate. So I would be very surprised if she doesn't stick by him, because again, she doesn't really care what anyone else thinks. She's so secure in herself, and she doesn't need anyone's approval.
If you found out that I'd killed somebody just because I was kind of really mad at them, would you be able to look past that?
I don't want this to be held against me in a court of law. It really does depend on who it was.
And Carla clearly did have an axe to grind, a major axe to grind with Stephen.
You can argue, honestly, that it was motivated, the majority of it was motivated by Peter's love for Carla. I don't think he would have really given a crap about what Stephen was up to if it didn't involve Carla. I
suppose so. I just think
if somebody messed with you and then, I had the chance and it looked like I could get away with it, who knows what would have happened.
Well, I think Peter's maybe just banking on this ending the same way as it did for Toya, which is admitting that she's done it. Clearly she did it. I know she didn't admit it in court or anything, but just getting away with it and nobody mentioning it again.
But do you really think that Peter would have really cared about anything that Stephen did if it wasn't for Carla?
No, not really.
It really is down to Carla that he even got involved in this in the first place. It was motivated by love. So if you're a Carla and Peter fan, you're going to be rooting for him to get away with it.
Peter...
If indeed you believe that there is anything to get away with.
Peter has always been a bit of a philosopher, hasn't he? Especially since that trip to LA and he came back all chilled.
Oh, don't even talk to me about that.
I suppose he would feel that justice should be done.
What does that mean?
And that he would be against Peter, against Stephen. Sorry, I don't know. I just think that I don't know. I think I've said everything I think about this, but I would like to point out that I think it's fairly bad of Carla that she swans off to Spain when her husband is being investigated for murder. Is she really the only one that can save this Spanish deal that we didn't even know existed? And can it not be done over Zoom?
Yeah, I don't. That kind of made me look again when I heard that she decided she is going to Spain.
She just kind of dropped it out of nowhere as well, didn't she? Just like, that's what you do. Just going to Spain. It's like, I'm just popping down the shops. The way that she just casually mentioned
get involved in discussing this, because I guess there's more to why she went to Spain. It feels like a production.
It really does feel like a let's give Ali King a rest kind of thing.
It doesn't feel like it's justified whatsoever by the story, but we'll just brush that under the carpet.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see like what Ryan has to do with this, if anything, because he's had his own story this week, which we're going to get to in a minute. But considering that he and Peter have been living together for a good part of this year, Ryan's got surprisingly little to say. You know, he's not picking a side here at the moment, is he? So maybe Peter and Ryan is moving back now, isn't he? Maybe they'll bond more there or something. I don't know. But yeah, I thought this was a good old storyline this week. Unfortunately for me, the week started off strong on Monday and tailed off as Tuesday and Wednesday went on. And I think it was because of the increase in other stories compared to this. But yeah, I'm very intrigued to see where this goes next. So let's move on to the Ryan storyline, speaking of which. And he is, at the beginning of the week, telling Lauren that he's feeling pretty down about things, about this. He's been asked by Daniel to go into school to do this talk to the wrong uns about what a sad victim he is, and he was asked this months ago. It feels like now, but today is the day that he's got to do it. And Daniel persuades him in the cafe to just give it a shot. It'll be fine. But he's going to also call in Daisy as a bit of a backup so that she can say her side of the story as well. So very quickly we get to these prison scenes, and Daisy's there giving Ryan a bit of encouragement and saying, look, you could really make a difference on these kids' lives. And Ryan's like, I want to be strong, but I don't know whether I can. And Daisy says, oh, you're one of the most strongest people I know, which was a bit cliche dialogue, I'm going to say. So Daisy takes the reins first and does her speech to the gathered scallies in the prison, and she's saying, I think that they did a good job with the speeches, but I don't know, I didn't really feel mega invested in their feelings this week. And then when he does his speech to the camera later, when he says, I'm coming off social media, everything, the dialogue was good, the performance was good, but I felt it difficult to really invest and have sympathy in them. I don't know, how did you feel about this story in general this week?
I wasn't... I question how effective it would be to get a bunch of teenage boys, and I'm not being rude about boys or teenagers, but I am going to say that there's definitely a pressure in groups in those particular demographics to not find anything emotionally affecting and be too cool. And I can't believe that prisoners, like all these boys who've been chucked in prison for whatever, are going to be like, oh wow, Daisy's so, it just affected me emotionally. They're just going to be talking about how much they want to shag her and what,
It's the first time they've seen a woman in who knows how many months, probably, isn't it? I just can't
believe that Daniel is, after, how long has he worked there? Is he so naive that he really thinks? Anyway, but obviously in the world of Coronation Street, this works.
I don't know. I mean...
What was your question? I didn't remember.
No, I was just asking you how it affected you. Were you also yawning along with the yawning scally?
The problem is, nothing that Daisy or Ryan could say in a speech was better than what I've seen them go through since they were attacked.
And that was a long time ago.
Emotionally,
March, was it?
I really think we have grown with the characters and we've been along for the ride and we've seen them go through this and we've had our own emotional reaction. So to have a speech, 6 months later about how bad this was, we know, we've seen it, we've been there, we were with you the whole time. I don't need another speech about how bad it was.
It feels like you've just dragging on a little bit too long.
You guys have done the work here. You've already put in the hours to tell me that this is bad. I don't need a speech at the end of it that's going to change my mind already. I'm already 100% on your side.
Yeah, so Daisy does her speech, and one of the teens there is kind of yawning his head off very rudely. And Daisy, to be fair, she's like, "Oh, sorry, hun, am I keeping you up?" But then when Ryan then comes up, the yawner gets a bit too fed up with this, and he storms out of the room. Daniel goes after him.
He's a big old fluffhead, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, I don't need to sit here being made to feel guilty about what I've done." Turns out that this guy glassed a bloke, you see, and it's touching a nerve somewhat. But he reluctantly returns to the classroom to hear more of Ryan's inspiring words about, freeing themselves in their heads and everything. And by the end of it, Yorna has turned himself round, and doesn't Ryan get a fist bump from him at the end of the scene or something?
I'm not convinced that I buy any of this.
Daisy, I mean, it might not have worked on the teens, but she was there just realising how hot and sexy Ryan was, and I love a victim, says Daisy.
This scene was not to convince the scallywags of the prison to change their ways. It was literally just to get Daisy's pants wet for Ryan.
Basically.
And it definitely worked. She's making googly eyes at him the whole time.
Yeah, and at the end of the scene, you got real coughs this evening, haven't you? You're right.
I apologise.
No, I just want to check you're okay.
Yes.
Yes, you're okay, good. So yeah, they have this scene at the end of the episode where they kind of say, "Oh, sometimes the only real way that you can know someone is if you both have acid chucked at you."
Oh.
And we've got this bond that nobody else understands. It's hard to explain it unless they manage to keep their hands off each other for Monday's episode at least, but Tuesday is when it kind of really gets down and dirty. Yes. So Daniel tells Ryan, "Oh, your speech was dead good yesterday, Ryan. You did a really good job." He says that to Daisy, doesn't he? And Daisy, maybe this should be a chance for you to reset and seek new avenues. And it all seemed
he's basically
just a little bit giving her tacit permission in soap secret code to go and bone Ryan.
Daniel's saying, "Oh, it'd be really cool if you started a new chapter and got off your ass and got a new job, considering that I'm bringing in all the bacon here on my I guess part-time teacher's job, because he doesn't spend any amount of time doing anything, as far as I can tell, compared to a normal teacher."
He seems like he's got it easy, timetable-wise. I know it's going to be difficult teaching the ne'er-do-wells rather than the class of well-behaved angels that are in Wethy High.
Absolutely hilarious that his display board that was made for the Edinburgh trip that he took, that we learned so much about when he was working at Weatherfield High last year, going on about this bloody Edinburgh trip, and they made a display about it, and he brought it with him, put it in the hallway of Highfield prison.
That set dresses.
That is the same one, guys. Don't try to kid me. Why did you put it? You think we wouldn't notice? It's like he's going, listen kids, I know you're all in prison right now, but if you play your cards right and you work really hard and you say you're sorry, you too could go to Edinburgh. Especially from Manchester, it's not as far away as it is from here. Like, you can go to France.
It's within your grasp.
You could go to France much faster than you could from here than you can go to Edinburgh. It's actually quite exotic, but I don't think for Northerners it's quite as big of a deal.
Anyway,
there are pandas there, I've heard, and ghosts.
Ryan's in his flat later. He's still got this Lauren flat in the precinct, and he's pumping iron and he's doing his drugs and everything. Daisy comes round.
I love pumping iron.
Offers to go out for a drink with him, and she nearly uncovers his drug pouch, but she didn't see it. And he says, "Look, just go and wait for me in the bakery, and I'll be down soon."
He had a Sharps box.
Well, that's how
Very
you do
responsible.
it properly, isn't it? So, in the precinct, Max and Gav are there. They're basically just arsing around. And Gav, who is, he's starting to get a bit of a reputation for throwing lemonade around everywhere, because today he douses Ryan with it, which he lives to regret, because Ryan himself has a little flashback. Everyone's having flashbacks this week. Ryan's
Coronation
having flashback.
Street.
Tim's having flashback. But at least with Ryan's flashback, they did a bit of a better job, and they actually got Justin Rutherford, 1989, to come and make a little appearance on the show, rather than just showing an old clip of it. So that was a nice little moment, wasn't it? Seeing Justin there.
Yeah, just to be clear, Gav throws water on... No. Gav throws...
Water / lemonade or something on Ryan, and he has a little...
thinks it's Justin who's the guy that threw acid on everybody.
Yes.
But I just want to say, I completely think it's great that Coronation Street is focusing a bit more on the mental health implications of some of the incredibly serious things and issues-based storylines that are happening to the characters in Coronation Street. But I think we all know what I'm going to say.
What?
Well, everyone's going through a tough time on Coronation Street. It's literally issues-based storylines left, right and centre. I do not want to see every single character having a mental health crisis and flashbacks and PTSD and emotional trauma based on all these. I know it's realistic, but if I wanted to see realism, I'd just go onto YouTube and watch documentaries about sad people. Coronation Street can't afford the amount of time it would take for everyone to have a realistic flashback.
Do flashbacks really like this really happen though? It seems like it is a Coronation Street thing that people remember.
Yeah, I know. It's a way. It's a way of fiction depicting trauma that is specifically only. I really genuinely think that this is only a fictional thing. It's very rare, surely, to have this happen. But
yeah,
I'd rather this happened with characters that I haven't seen. Like, I really liked seeing Justin again. That was cool.
It's a nice kind of...
But not in the same week that we're having flashbacks about Stephen. He's also not in the show anymore.
It's a nice little mini surprise if they use it sparingly.
Yeah, but
it's not like they do it all the time.
Yeah, but I feel as though, even though it wasn't that, it was like last year, I still feel like it's so soon and close to Yasmin having her flashbacks with
Yeah, that's what I was
Jeff.
just about to say.
Sorry, darling.
And also, Daniel, and it's not exactly the same, but do you remember when he was looking at Bethany and seeing Sinead after she died?
It's just happening so frequently, it's lost its impact.
That's it,
They need to think of a different way of doing it.
But they don't need to do it at all.
They don't need to do it at all.
It's not. It's always good to have a cameo, but
and we've criticised, and everyone criticises the show, and we've joked with people that work on the show before about how much emotional damage would be done to everybody, and they've said, if everybody was really, if everyone spent as much time thinking about it as you would do in real life, then they'd all be crippled with PTSD or something. But yeah, exactly. So let's not show all this stuff. You just cannot do it. It just doesn't make any sense. You've got to suspend disbelief and not have it. The same way you've got to suspend disbelief and we don't see them going to the toilet. I don't need to see the nitty gritty and...
Did this really advance the plot that much? Because Daisy, she'd already decided, I think, that me and Ryan were going to get down and dirty. Did we need to see Ryan losing it and beating up Gav and just to make us believe that Daisy would want to go to bed with him?
No, but I was glad that Gav was in it.
I like to see Gav, but
more Gav.
It felt like that seems a little bit unnecessary. I don't know.
And if listen, I'm just going to say this after everything I've just said there. If the only time we get to see Gav ongoing is through the sad PTSD flashbacks of when Max was his friend, then fine. But more Gav, nevertheless.
Yes. Gav and Sabrina, underused.
Yes.
So anyway, they go back to the flat to Ryan and Daisy, and he's dead upset about everything that happens. And Daisy's like, "Oh, don't worry.
Let me support you with my hands on your penis."
How rude. She wants to talk about it, and she says, "Look, you can't bury your head in the sand over this. You've clearly got PTSD, haven't you?" And he's like, "I can't. You can't help me. Nobody can." He gets a bit of the roid rage again, but quickly apologises, and then he starts opening up to her about his drug addiction. No, not addiction, his habit that he's been going through the past few months. And he says, "Oh yeah, I wanted to beef up, but it's a bit like armour. I felt so bad about my appearance, and this made me kind of feel a little bit more like I used to when people used to fancy me." And Daisy says, "This isn't you." And he's like, "I don't know who I am now, okay?" She says, "Look, remember that brilliant speech you did yesterday? That's the Ryan that I..." She doesn't say the one that I love, but we know that's what she was meaning. "That's the best version of you." So later on, Daisy's a little bit narc with Daniel when it turns out that he knew about the steroids as well, and then they bicker. So this was kind of put in there as a way to try and excuse Daisy for her later behaviour, to say, well, Daniel had a secret against her, so it's fair game that she bonks Ryan. I don't know, I certainly didn't feel that. And then we have another emotional scene from Ryan, which I just, like you said earlier, I feel like I've seen it all before. It left me cold, I'm gonna say, and it's nothing to do with Ryan's performance or the words in the script, but I didn't need another scene of him doing an emotional speech. He's there with his mask filter on, isn't he?
Oh, I didn't like this.
Going on to Ovid's, and probably his subscribers are like, I didn't pay however much for a month to hear you banging on about your problems. Get your kit off, man. But he talks about, I thought by doing these videos I'd be creating a truth for myself, and now it's time to stop lying. It was all, come on, grow up, man.
The only way I can see this feeling in any way justified is if he becomes from this some kind of psychology guru or something. Because in real life, if an internet personality goes online and sort of spills their guts and says some kind of sad sob story, everyone just makes fun of them. Just like remixes their apology video.
In real life, Ryan would become a meme from this.
Exactly. And with the best will in the world, the silly mask that he was wearing looked really dodgy. I don't know who was in charge of that, but I can imagine that he didn't have as much of a budget as TikTok does. But yeah,
it just didn't really work for me.
He's been internet famous for 3 months?
Night. Yeah.
We've been doing this for 11 years, and if we did a speech about how we're sad and we're not going to do Coronation Street podcast anymore, about 3 people go, sorry about that, and then that'd be the end of it. Who cares?
I don't know how many people were watching, but among the viewers were Daniel, Roy and Nina, so clearly subscribers to Ryan's account.
Sean and Izzy are both in the underworld toilets and separate cubicles crying, going, live feed from Ryan, brilliant, what, he's quitting?
Sean and Izzy are the real unsung victims of this week, aren't they? Never mind Tim, never mind Ryan.
Yeah. Daniel, Roy and Nina are like, well, okay, where do I get my refund for my year's subscription? I paid in advance.
So we have a scene later
if you'd like to pay in advance via our Patreon feed for Conversation Street, you get 8% off an entire year's subscription. It's brilliant.
Daisy's in Seb's garden.
Just saying.
As well, she's listening to Ryan's video, and clearly it's having much more of an effect on her than it did on us.
So it's definitely 6 viewers he's got, for sure. Nice one.
So she goes round his flat, and after a bit of a hug, they start knocking each other's faces off because clearly she's into grief.
Love it. What's it called? A grief thief.
Yeah, she is a grief thief, isn't she? So anyway, it didn't just stop at the snogging. They've done it. They come out of the bedroom later, and she's, to be fair to her, looking guilty, as she should, madam.
Yes.
And Ryan's like, we need to talk about what's happened. She's like, I don't think we can at the moment. And then Daniel comes a knocking, and it's like, oh no, Daisy's in the flat with me, what am I going to do? And you've quite rightly pointed out that in this scene where Daisy was wondering how is she going to escape Ryan, there was a door literally right behind her that led out to the precinct.
What they're doing with these precinct flats, but there are clearly 2 entrances. There's the entrance that you get to through the back door staircase, and there's the ones that open onto the balconies that look over the precinct.
And it's not like they're painted up or anything, because we've seen people coming out of those before.
They're now acting as though those don't open, but we've seen, I'm sure, when it was Evelyn and Cassie's flat, I'm sure people came in and out of that door.
I don't think they did for that.
Well, those doors are clearly the same doors that open onto the precinct balconies, and there's no reason to think they don't open. Get rid of them. I know that in the scene later, I'm sorry, I know this is a bit of a side rant, but there's Lauren and Ryan are talking in the flats later on in the week, and Lauren is definitely sitting in front of that door with her chair. But why the hell did you put the door in this frickin' set if you didn't want to use it? Don't have a door.
It's because it had to match the outside, isn't it?
But why? I'm sorry, but please.
Anyway,
don't have a character going, how am I going to escape from this, clear thing I need to run away from, standing in front of a doorway that you know opens to escape.
Well,
and don't expect me to not make fun of you if you're going to do it.
She does the classic thing of hiding in the toilet, and Daniel comes in and he doesn't find that she's there, but her jumper from earlier is on the floor, so it feels like, is he going to find out or not? Or is it a coat? I can't remember. So she escapes.
Ryan kind of hides it with his foot.
Yeah, so Daniel ends up disappearing off, and Daisy is safe for now.
Well, no,
so
Ryan and Daniel go for a drink.
Yeah, but then Lauren comes in, and she's a bit more astute than Daniel, clearly, because she spots that Daisy's got a top on inside out, so she thinks, oh, something's been going on here. I can't remember what Daisy's excuse is, but anyway, they go to the bistro, and Daniel goes to the bog, and Daisy says, Ryan, look, Lauren's found out about us, I don't know what we're going to do here. And he says, don't worry, Lauren's cool. But Daisy reckons that they've done something really, really wrong here. She's engaged to Daniel, for crying out loud. And that Ryan then just gets a bit arsey and leaves her alone. Is this why Daisy and Daniel have stayed engaged for all this time? To me, it really hasn't made sense that they've not got married, because they were there on their wedding day back in March. And it felt like even then they weren't engaged for that long. I can't remember how long they've been engaged for, but I don't know. They should just get married or not, because I think it's over now.
Well, it's not even that they should get married or not, but at least have a conversation where they acknowledge the fact that they were going to get married and they've decided for whatever reason. Well,
I don't know.
If they just said, we've decided... All they needed was one scene where they said, where Daisy said something like, look, Daniel, I really would love to marry you, but everything that happened with this made me realise we should do it on our own properly instead of relying on subscribers and freebies. And he said, I don't mind waiting for you as long as you want. If you get the day you've always dreamed of, I don't care. And then we could have moved on. Instead of having... Yeah, we're super, super in love with each other to the point we're going to get married, but then something went wrong and we decided not to. It kind of betrays the idea that they're super in love, because if we, I'm imagining you and I, if something terrible happened on our wedding day, my first thought would be, I want to get married anyway. I don't want this to be the end point of our relationship, or when I think about getting married to you, this is how it ends. You either want to marry someone or you don't, and I don't want to be rude to Daisy because I really do like her, but it does feel to me as though the entire thing was, I want a pretty picture of myself in a nice wedding dress, and if I can't get it, then forget it.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
I don't think that's what Coronation Street wants us to think, though.
I don't know.
And also, obviously, Coronation Street wanted this drama to happen, and it's more convenient that it does so when they're not married.
Too long.
Yeah.
So Wednesday's episode, Lauren's starting off the day having a bit of a joke with Ryan about Daisy being around there yesterday and the inside out top thing, and Ryan's like, she's just a friend. He goes and visits Carla, and he tells her, right, I need to move back in with you now because my Ovid's cash has stopped. I closed down my account and now I'm broke again. Lauren notices in the cafe later that Daisy... I was a bit surprised by how little Lauren knew of Daisy up until this point. And I know it's, in the soap, everybody is supposed to know each other somehow, and that's not necessarily realistic to real life. But Lauren has the shocking revelation in that scene that Daisy not only has a boyfriend, but she's engaged to him. So she then decides, as the episode goes on, that she's going to use this newfound knowledge to her advantage and do a little bit of blackmailing. Ooh, it only seems like 5 minutes since we've had that in Coronation Street last. So Ryan goes to the bistro to ask for his job back. Now he ain't got his Ovid cash, and brilliant, what are the chances he can start straight away? And what are the chances, doubly? Here comes Daisy, who has just very coincidentally got herself a trial shift at the bistro starting at exactly the same time. God, what are the chances of that, eh? So Ryan says to Daisy, look, I didn't have any clue that you were working here. The two of them agreed to keep their distance from each other, and Ryan says to Leanne, look, can we have separate shifts, me and Daisy, because we've been through a lot. Ryan sees Lauren in the street later and says, look, I'm going to have to move out. I'm sorry, I haven't got the money. And Lauren's like, oh no, well, what if I can't get anyone to take the room? And I'm not going to have anywhere to live. So I'm not really selling this story. I don't know whether Do you did you see much? Did you read much on the internet this week about whether people were into this story?
No,
because
but it just seems kind of
dragged
dumb
for me.
that she
Not that interesting.
she fell across an opportunity by having Ryan say, "Oh, I'll come and join you and pay some of the rent," and she was like, "Oh, that's handy." But once Ryan's gone, we're supposed to believe that this is the only chance she ever had for getting a roommate, and now she has to resort to drastic tactics in order to replace him.
She literally found Ryan almost the moment she started looking for a roommate a few weeks ago, didn't she?
And she genuinely can't seem to, no, it does. I don't buy it.
Well, there's a little bit of intrigue created later because we see her having a mysterious phone call with somebody, and then it turns out that she's owing them quite a bit of cash, and she says, "Yeah, look, I'll try to get the money back to you as quick as I can." So.
Yeah, I guess that's the get out of jail free card for Coronation Street to say, "Oh, no.
So she tells Ryan, I need £1,000. If you don't give me it, I'm going to tell everybody about you and Daisy sleeping together, because clearly that's what was happening yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he says, look, I can't just give you £1,000. I'm not made of money. I don't know what he's done with all this Ovid's cash. Is he just automatically spend everything straight away? I think this is a life lesson that maybe if you're going to make your money in internet fame, hoard a bit of it. Just put a bit of it under your mattress or something, just in case. You need to keep a
third of it for taxes.
A blackmail opportunity arises. Anyway,
always keep a third back for taxes, and make sure that you got yourself somebody to help you do the tax return, which is probably going to cost you about 150 quid.
So he goes and tells Daisy.
Not that I know about how to make money through internet pornography
or blackmail. He goes to see Daisy and says, "Oh no, we need £1,000." And they looked at their funds together, and it looks like they've got £700 between them, but they need to get the rest today.
What are they going to do?
Otherwise, everyone's going to find out what we did. Daisy starts looking at payday loans, and Daniel finds her at it and says, "Look, you don't need to do that. I'm a teacher. I'm made of money. We're dead rich, us teachers. We just had a pay rise and everything.
Michael, can I
have £300. And she says, "No, I couldn't possibly." But he insists, "You can't have £300, Gemma. No." Ryan and Daisy get together later on, and he says, "Look, Daisy, we need to make sure Lauren stays quiet." She says, "Yeah, I agree. I can't afford to lose Daniel over this." She makes it clear that she in no way agrees with herself, agrees that what she did with yesterday, what the two of them did yesterday, was a good thing. She has got huge regrets over it. "I would never do this again." And Ryan's like, "Well, I would." So he's still quite pleased with his latest conquest, it seems. Ryan gives Lauren the money, and then she says, "I want more, please."
Lovely, I love money. Give me more. That's what I say.
And Daisy, who had told Daniel that the reason that she wanted this cash earlier was because she wanted to go and do a bit of retail therapy and buy a bag and a coat. She tells him, "Yeah, I got it, but it's going to stay in the cupboard for the moment because I need to find the right moment to debut it to the world." And I say that Daisy could probably show Daniel literally any item of clothing in her wardrobe, any accessory from her shelves, and Daniel would believe that it's brand new. It totally would. If you told me that,
I've got loads of stuff you've never seen before that I could say, "Look, this is what you bought me with my £300. £300.
So,
and also, I'm going to say, Daniel does not strike me as an incredibly attentive boyfriend.
So the union between Ryan and Daisy this week, Gemma, what are your thoughts on this?
It was inevitable, but also incredibly disappointing. But we knew this was heading this way. I'm just surprised it took so long. It feels like it's being dragged out, but then we complain about other storylines that we say take too far. So
the kiss was still a couple of months ago, wasn't it? I just kind of I agree with you. I wish that they'd taken the plaster off first and just got it all out of the way months ago.
Does it make them better character, more moral, that they resisted for a longer amount of time?
And is Daisy more moral because she's showing that she's a little bit sad that it happened? Well, I tell you what, I've got no sympathy for her now. I feel exactly the same. I feel exactly the same about this as I did when Sarah got off with Damon earlier on this year. No, I don't agree with
No.
it. I'm really, really sad because both Sarah and Daisy have been characters that I've really enjoyed, and now they're making them do these very morally questionable things, dropping their knickers, and I think, sorry lady, you've gone really down in my estimation. And after I made such progress with my love of Daisy as well, after hating her when she first came in, and now I'm kind of feeling the same as I did about her when she first came in. I'm not enjoying her. I'm thinking, well, this is... why do you do this, Coronation Street? Why do you ruin the characters that I like? I still think that all the performers in this are brilliant. I think that Charlotte Jordan is absolutely a massive asset to Coronation Street still. But now I feel that in order to enjoy Daisy again, the character is going to have to do an awful lot of work for me to forget about the clear infidelity from this week's episode.
So who do you think she's going to end up with then? Do you think she's going to end up with neither of them? Or is she going to sort of declare her love for Ryan? Or is she going to try to get back with Daniel?
Well, surely she's still with Daniel at the moment, but surely the writing is on the wall for the pair of them. When has there ever been a secret affair in a soap that stayed quiet?
That's a good question.
Never, that's when. So Daniel, it's only a matter of, I really don't know, but it is only a matter of time before Daniel finds out, which means that it's not really tense for me.
Yeah,
like,
that's a good
the tension
point.
is Daniel going to find out? Well, yes, he will. It's just a matter of time is when. And I kind of want him to find out soon, just to get it over with. I don't like the idea of Daisy kind of sneaking about and lying to Daniel and having these secret whisper conversations with Ryan. I feel bad for him. Daniel's not done anything to deserve this, apart from not telling Daisy that Ryan was on drugs, maybe.
How much... So do you think this is right to say that quite a lot of your opinion of this is just driven by your own personal thoughts of how you would react if you were Daniel in this situation?
Maybe I am.
Because it obviously never been in this situation, but because Daisy's a girl, I kind of sympathise with her more.
Well, you always tell me that I'm being
you do
a male chauvinist when I blame Daisy.
You do.
But still,
I'm just gonna say
Ryan
you definitely.
is completely
okay,
single.
Can I just say you always do.
I'm not defending Ryan at all. He made the moves just as much as she did.
You're always a lot more harsh on the women in almost any situation.
No, I don't think so. And I think that if Ryan had been the one who had a girlfriend and Daisy was single, then I'd be taking Ryan to task just as much as I am for Daisy.
I'm perfectly happy to give you a pass on the fact that perhaps Coronation Street is actually driving this because it's always the women who are in the wrong, because I definitely think that's also something to think about. I do think that most of the main characters who cheat are women.
And it's not like it's...
And when I say cheat, I mean you're in a relationship and you have you cheat on... Like, because like you said, Ryan's single, but I still also think he's just as culpable. I don't buy the idea that if you're... sleeping around, or you can't say, oh, I didn't have an affair because I was single if you know the other person is in a relationship.
I know I've got lots of harsh words for Ryan as well this week, but yeah, I think that
look,
Daniel's going to find out. The question is how. Do you think that Lauren is going to be the one to reveal it?
Don't know,
because she got her money today,
don't know.
but I think that she's realised
going to find out. Daniel's going to find out. But listen, the other thing I want to say is about cheating and affairs and whatever. The thing is about this situation is that Daniel has been nothing but sweet and lovely and understanding and kind and
yeah, he's a bit boring.
Maybe he's boring and not fun.
He deserved to be cheated on
to Daisy, but then you break up. If somebody's abusive or horrible or a cheat or what's the word? Coercively controlling, even in a very minor way, I can see why you would seek comfort in someone else's arms. That definitely makes sense. But in this situation, it just seems so cut and dried that Daisy should just be like, Daniel, well, it's not working out.
Mm. But it's a shame
each
because
situation is individual.
I thought that Daisy and Daniel made a really interesting couple. And again, it took me a little while to warm to them together, which makes me all the sadder that now it's over, and it's like,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about them at first, but then I really got invested in them, and the idea that this is a bit of a Ken and Deirdre situation.
So their relationship is...
No relationship seems to stay together. So it makes me think, what's the point of investing in any relationship?
Daniel and Daisy's relationship is interesting because it's chalk and cheese. Ryan and Daisy's relationship is two people that are kind of shallow and obsessed with their looks and into being an influencer and going online and making their money from that.
But they're not airheads.
Interesting. No, I don't care whether they're airheads or not. The similarities are what I just said.
Yeah.
You know, before Ryan wanted to do his fitness stuff, he was a DJ who tried to do online streaming to get money. He was a promoter. He had to sell himself as a personality. And same with Daisy. These two people are so similar to one another.
Which makes sense if they're together.
But fictionally, is it interesting to watch two people that are very similar? Don't know.
No, I think that Ryan and Daisy in real life probably would make a good couple. Little bit surprising, the whole, rapey business when Daisy tried to drug him. Was that what it was a couple of years ago? I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, but, they've got a lot of history.
They look good together, and yes, I get the whole thing about they've had the shared experience with the acid attack. I don't know whether I necessarily buy that, but it's a shame, really.
It reminds me of this is definitely showing my age here, Speed, with Sandra Bullock. And who was it? Keanu Reeves. And there's a joke in Speed 2 where Sandra Bullock's in it, but Keanu Reeves isn't. And one of the characters asks Sandra Bullock's character, like, why aren't you together? And she says something along the lines of, like, this relationship's born out of extreme situations, never last very long. And this is exactly what it feels like with Ryan and Daisy. Have they not watched Speed 2? Surely everyone has.
I don't think I have. The other thing I wasn't too fussed about with this story was the whole blackmail angle, because it feels like people are always blackmailing each other on Coronation Street. It's just returning to that same well for the drama, and it's like, give me money, or otherwise I'm going to tell your secret.
I know, but it also feels a bit like Ryan and Daisy should just be like, oh, that's okay, because I just got a windfall.
And also, I'm feeling bad towards Daniel and Daisy. I'm thinking, well, you deserve it. Look what you've done. You've been unfaithful. So then, well done, Lauren. But
we're supposed to be intrigued, like, ooh, why does Lauren need the money? Who's she giving it to?
Yeah, I
feel like it's her dad or another white supremacist or some kind of unsavoury character from...
I think whatever it is, it's going to be something that makes me feel sorry for her. She's probably, she's probably the patron of an abused kittens charity or something. Well, so she needs £1,000 to make sure that they've got enough pouches of Whiskers at the shelter. Because Coronation Street... I feel is really, really trying hard to make me like Lauren, but then they're making her so despicable. Like she was vile towards Ryan when she was blackmailing him, but then at the end of the scene she looks a bit sad. So I go, oh, maybe there's more to it than that. They're really gonna have to work very hard to make me have any kind of real sympathy for Lauren now. I think they've pushed it too far into that she's a...
Yeah, whatever it is that she owes money for is going to be something that drives our sympathy for her character, and it just feels so predictable. Yeah,
it does. I'm ready for this story to end, and maybe this is to getting there. And
do you think
the end point is that Daisy and Ryan are together, and Daniel is left on his own with Bertie again? I just hope they hurry up and get to it. Really.
Do you think it's going to be like, I need money, Ryan? Give me money. I need £1,000. And he gives her £1,000, and then she says, I need more. And he's like, look, Lauren, what is it you need? And she says, I wasn't going to say anything, but it's an ITV soap rehabilitation course for characters that are wrong-uns and they want to turn their lives around.
Yeah, there's a guest speaker next week. Becky Granger's coming back. Right, let's do the Bailey storyline. And I don't know whether we're going to get a huge amount of inspiration out of this. This is what I was saying about this week. Started off well. The immediate aftermath of the Stephen drama was really gripping to me, but a lot of everything else that happened this week left me feeling a little bit cold.
Cold hard cash. So on Monday, Ronnie is trying to get another investor for his and what's their business called?
Eddie Ron.
He can't get an investor, and Ed tells Dee Dee about this, and then he asks her about how things are going, and she keeps trying to say all Monday, "Oh, I love my new boyfriend," but Ed's not paying attention, and she gets kind of disillusioned. And Ed finds Dee Dee in the cafe later, and then he says, "Look, sorry I kept interrupting you when you're trying to tell me about your new boyfriend, but genuinely I'm thrilled telling me all about him. Sounds really great. Is he boring?" And Dee Dee's like, "Yes, he's so boring. He's like the most bland man ever."
That's probably what Ed wants in a boyfriend. Like, there's been murderers around here, there's been blackmail, there's been acid, all I want for you, my love, all anybody around here who want for their daughter is for them to have the blandest boyfriend in Weatherfield, and it sounds like you've got him, love.
He says, "Dee Dee, is he black?" And Dee Dee says, "He's actually beige." In personality. He's like the most beigest person ever since.
I don't know whether since Stella
Price came.
I don't know whether they're gonna, people that I've seen online saying, "Oh, is he a dodgy geezer?" Is when he's setting up Ed and Ron with this meeting next week or something, and is he really trying to scam them? But from where I'm looking at the moment, Joel does not inspire any excitement from me.
Maybe he is, but it will be a mask that drops, because at the moment he is just incredibly bland. And I don't know who plays him, but they're doing a great job. He's very handsome. He's very normal.
Doing a great job of being handsome.
Well, he's handsome and normal. He just doesn't fit into a soap. So Dee Dee says, "Let's all have lunch together," and Ed invites Michael later on, and Michael's still wringing his hands about the fact that he's ruined his life and everyone else's by giving Stephen $250,000. Also, if I was Michael, I'd be like, if only I'd transferred some of it to myself. On Tuesday, we get this intrigue because a letter arrives at number 3 and is intercepted by Ed, and it's to Norris Cole from a bank. And
the way that they were talking about it, like, I can't remember, does Michael say, "Oh, isn't that guy that used to live there?" Like, we've been in our house for 2 years now, and we're still getting posts with the people that used to live here. I would have thought that receiving letters for Norris is probably a fairly frequent thing, and maybe Michael wouldn't say, "Isn't that the man who used to live here?" It should have been more like, "Oh no, it's another letter for Norris. Pop it in the post box. Say not known at this address."
Well, it's been a while. They've been there for longer than 2 years.
Yeah, I know.
So anyway, Ed's card gets declined at the cafe, and Joel's behind him. They don't know each other at this point, and he does a good Samaritan act and pays for Ed's coffee or whatever he has. And Ed doesn't really want him to do this, but fine, he lets him. And then later on, the Baileys have lunch at the bistro, and Ed is very surprised when it turns out Joel is the guy that Dee Dee's dating. And he also gets his nose put out of joint when he realises that Joel knows that his car doesn't work, and Joel pays the bill. And Ed kind of like insinuates that he's trying to bail him out and says, "Oh, we should split next time." And Joel says, "Don't worry, you can pay next time we get together." And it just feels like Ed has got a massive ego here, and he's not willing to let Joel bail him out.
Well, he's been a businessman. Not a businessman. He's been in the trade for many years, and to have some guy that he probably sees his belly out of nappies come and kind of swoosh in, and obviously in a much more secure financial state than he is, he probably got his pride hurt.
There's many layers here, isn't there? There's the kind of like the white saviour thing. There's the I'm middle class and you're just a working class builder, even though really Ed probably earns a lot more money than Joel would do starting out as a lawyer. There's the idea that I'm the provider for my daughter, not you. There's so many different layers here, and it totally makes sense that Ed would kind of get a bit annoyed, but you'd hope that Ed would be a bit more generous than he has been here, but he's been caught at a vulnerable moment. They give each other a look, don't they? Back at home, and Ed's going through Norris's letter when Joel and Dee Dee comes home, and I love how excited and giddy Dee Dee is that Joel's just the saviour of the business, because she's like, "Oh, guess what, Dad? Joel, I spoke to Joel about," and obviously Ed's really annoyed that Dee Dee's been chatting outside of school about the fact that his business is in trouble to this guy that it's supposed to be Joel that impresses Ed, but instead Ed's just concerned that Joel doesn't feel too badly of him. So the fact that Dee Dee's told Joel that the business is in trouble and they need an investor, Ed's not happy about this. No. But Dee Dee's like, Dad, guess what? Joel's so great. He thinks he knows somebody who might be able to invest in the business. And so when she goes off and makes a cup of tea, Ed kind of he gets this really great scene where he's looking at him over his glasses and he's like, I'm not skint, all right. And he kind of takes him to task. And Joel says, I just wanted you to realise that I'm not a freeloader and that I want to take care of your daughter as much as you do, which is very sweet, but very bland. On Wednesday, Ed's posting this letter back to the credit card company, pretending to be Norris Cole. And he also sees Michael, who's trying to get his job back from the factory. And Ronnie comes back. He's been on holiday with Debbie and they've had a brilliant time, and but he's also excited that Joel knows this investor guy. Meanwhile, we get to see Michael going to the factory to get his job back, and at this point, what's her name? Carl has ditched everyone to go to Spain and left Sarah to take control, and so Michael has to have an audience with her, and he's trying to plead for his job. And Sarah's like, look, I know everything you've done. And it's like, literally, yeah, I have single-handedly saved this company like a few times over just because I got tricked by a criminal. Sorry I wasn't murdered, because apparently that would have made me a saint. But because I was just defrauded, it means I get fired. I invented Snipper Snapper. Like, him and Sarah were the two people that really... Like, it was his idea and Sarah helped him. But she still fires him on Carla's say-so, and so Michael's left without a job. And I think I said before, but I can't remember where it was I said this, but Michael's the least successful Bailey sibling here in a family of quite high achievers. He's got his brother who was a professional football player, and is now a coach. He's got his sister who was a lawyer in America, and then he's been striving his whole life, and all he's got to show for it is the fact he's a single dad living with his parents. And
I think that the way Ryan Russell portrayed that frustration in the scene back at number 3 later was brilliant. I've always really enjoyed Michael as a character.
I think he's fantastic. I love Michael.
He does not. I don't think that he gets the credit that he deserves.
Nope.
The bit totally where he was sitting on the sofa and saying, "Look, I just want Glory to grow up, be proud of me. I want her to be independent.
Yeah.
I'm fed up of trying so hard." And he was crying, and he's. I thought he did a really, really good job, and that particular scene hit me much more than the Ryan and Daisy speeches did.
Well, that's because it's the first time we've ever seen him express this. And
Michael's usually such a chirpy, positive.
He's very upbeat,
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Michael, and this makes sense too, because also I think too, I don't think you particularly think of yourself as a creative, because you've said this to me before, even though I think you are very creative.
Oh, thank you.
But you don't think of yourself as a creative.
Not really.
I do. I think of myself as this, and it's so much harder to find success as somebody who is a creative person than it is somebody who has like a physical skill like his brother, or a kind of a head for law like his sister does. He's trying to make money from something that's notoriously difficult to make money out of. He's talented. We've seen that he is, even though I don't believe it, with his inventions and his nipper snapper stuff. He also had that business before with what's her face?
Who?
His girl Grace.
Yeah.
They made that.
The baby growth stuff.
He's had so many ideas that have taken off. But even though he grasps
but he's seeing
really
that whenever
hard,
he does, something goes wrong. Now it's just, but he's got to the end of the tether and he's snapped.
Yeah. And Ed says, look, you'll get there one day. And he says, I can't even afford to make it to the end of the month. I'm going to have to ask for my money back from you guys, because he invested his nipper snapper money into Ed and Ronnie's business. And at this point, Ed's like, oh no.
Ed knows he really needs to keep hold of that cash.
At the yard, Ed tells Ronnie about Michael losing his job and that he wants the investment back. And Ronnie's like, well, sorry, but he can't. We can maybe give him $1,000 back each, but it's going to have to come out of our own money and he'll have to pay us back. So later on, Ed tries to give $1,000 to Michael. And if you're only good at maths, you'll realise that that's £1,000 less. So it
And I
looks
don't think
as
it was
though
his contribution.
Ronnie
no.
has put the money in and Ed hasn't. And Michael says, thank you, but it's not enough. Don't even bother. You just keep it. And so Ed does.
Swine.
And Ed keeps this £1,000. And we don't know what happens with it, but it looks as though he's going to spirit it away somewhere.
Well, the question, I suppose, is he going to put it on a horse or a football match or something to try and sort of double it or whatever, and then they're going to be able to be out of this financial hole that they're in?
No, that's not going to happen.
They had the old cliche soap scene at the end of him going out of view of Ronnie and then getting the envelope out and looking at it saying, "Look, audience, look what I've become."
Yeah.
Not
I love
too
Michael.
fussed about that story.
I wish
but
he
the
was
Michael
more
stuff
popular.
helps.
I think he's wonderful.
Yes, me too. And finally, we've got the Lee, Todd and George story, which came racing to a halt this week, it felt like. There's yet more babyish, childish sniping between Todd and George over breakfast. Todd's making fun of Lee, calling him Lurch, and George ends up getting fed up with the whole thing and leaves. So then they have a scene outside the Undertaker's office later when, George accidentally calls Lee Lurch in front of a client. And before you know it, Lee has lurched off, and we're like, is that the end of him then? Is that the last of that?
I wish they'd kept him, because I think that these two would have made a funny trio.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Todd finds this hilarious when he finds out about it. And on Wednesday, George, we see really struggling, working on his own on the Undertakers again, and Todd and Paul are watching him complaining about his back, I think it was, and going, if only we could help, what should we do to help him? So Paul later on decides to do his Good Samaritan act by dropping it into the conversation with George that Todd recommended Shuttleworth's for Shelley's funeral the other week, and George is like, I can't believe it. Maybe Todd's a good one after all. And basically, Paul then engineers a meeting at the bistro between Todd and George. They make up, they shake hands, and they're a team again. Yay that they're back together, but again, wasn't that patently obvious that was going to happen? I suppose that what's different is that George just now says, Todd, I want to take you on as my junior partner. I just really, really feel that there was an awful lot of comedy that they could have squeezed out of this storyline by making it run for a little bit longer. I mean, whereas
you were moaning it was obvious and you didn't want to see.
Well, it was very, very obvious, but at least they could have put them some fun situations together, and they just really didn't. I mean, what did we have in this story? That Todd gets sniped by what's his face from Rest Easy. Lee comes along, acts a bit dumb, then climbs into a hearse. More and more scenes of number 11, George and Todd hating each other, and then they're back together, and that's literally it. Those two are a real asset. They're a great double act, aren't they? Todd and George, but I just felt that they didn't really show very much, and it was very, very much a filler story, but the potential was there for it to be a whole lot more. So when they got back together again, I was like, great. What was the point of that, really? Is that going to even make any difference, the fact that Todd is a junior partner, or is because he's still George's underling? This was
heading. I think he's gonna have a stake in the business now. We're supposed to think. I don't know what we're supposed to think, but I can't help but think to myself, George, why didn't you do this ages ago? You had the ability to make him your partner, and you didn't do it. And so all this stuff that he's saying about, I don't care about money, I just care about people, kind of falls a bit hollow when, yeah, okay, maybe you're not going to upsell somebody on a mahogany coffin when a pine one would do, but you're not going to pay your workers what they're worth. Come on.
He's still not worth that much. I mean, he hasn't done his exams or anything yet, has he?
I know, but...
Just because he's family, it doesn't mean that he's automatically owed a massive pay rise.
I know. I'm on the side of the workers here, and that's what he is. And George is the business owner. I don't know how much profit. He must be getting some profits out of this.
Yeah, sure.
And he'd rather put it in his pockets than give it to to his protege.
You're going to find out that George has got some secret gambling addiction as well now.
You're going to find out also that this big fancy house, Glenda's in there at the moment. What's he charging her for rent? Bet he's charging her over the odds because he's had to kick out like 5 Ukrainian refugee families that he's been crammed in there. They're all going to try to go over to Daniel's place to find out that Daisy's already sold it.
Anyway.
Sorry, but he's got a massive house. He's successful. He's squatting at Eileen's 24/7 and refusing to pay Todd the same amount that Rest Easy is. Give me a break. You're not that hard off, are you?
Just rushed. Is what I say about that one.
Tell me what you thought this week.
Not amazing. It started off and I loved Monday's episodes. That was absolutely a banging one, but there were just too many scenes on Tuesday and Wednesday's episode where I felt that I was supposed to be feeling something and it just left me feeling a little bit empty. I wanted to see more of the fallout of Stephen's death. I didn't need more scenes of Ryan and Daisy being angsty and then feeling guilty about shagging each other. Didn't need to see scenes of George and Todd bickering at each other and then having an eventual make-up. And so what? The Ed's got no money. There are
a lot of things that happened where it felt as though Coronation Street should have known better than to think they were building tension. By Friday evening, we knew
Wednesday evening.
Friday evening, we knew that Tim wasn't dead. So why did Coronation Street think they could cause drama and suspense by dragging out Tim rescuing himself on Monday? I don't know, but it didn't work because we all have seen soaps a million times before. There was no twist here. There was no final kill, so okay. That's one of my biggest things about the final the sort of handling of Stephen's storyline. I think I love the idea of will they kind of put Peter in prison or not. I don't think that I don't know why they sent Carla to Spain. I understand if Ali King needed time off, but goodness me, could we not have thought of a different way of writing that in? I don't know, but I guess whatever they said we would have moaned about, so they can't win there.
All they needed really for this week to have made me completely even less interested in it would be to have the Stu storyline.
I know, Michael, you've got that to look forward to. It's probably going to come back next week.
At least I like the characters of Ryan and Daisy. At least I like Ed. I like George and Todd, but they just I didn't feel they were doing enough interesting
about the Bailey stuff, because I like the Baileys. I know lots of people don't like that storyline, but I thought that was decent. I don't like Ryan and Daisy getting together, and I don't like. I thought the prison stuff was silly. I don't think teenage boys care about empathy, and I don't want to stigmatise them, but okay, I am. And Daisy, I don't believe for a minute she'd be left alone with a room full of teenage criminals without being molested in some way, but that certainly happened in the show. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to give this week about 3.5, and I'm going to give it 3.5 serial killer cast-offs.
Okay.
My character of the week, I'm trying to...
I know, I've just been thinking about that.
I think I'm going to give it to Michael, because I really like him. I want to champion Michael. I know he wasn't the major character, but...
Maybe Michael was my character of the week this week, and he certainly wasn't
because
a main
he really,
character.
honestly, of all the people that have been left behind in the wake of Stephen's reign of terror, he seems to be the most overlooked victim. Because he really was a victim of Stephen's crimes, but he's being treated like he was a criminal. Yeah. And I wish we got more of a focus on him talking about how he was duped and he feels stupid. But instead we've got him talking about how he feels unsuccessful, which totally understandable and sadly relatable, but not necessarily linked to Stephen necessarily. He could have felt that way from anything he's done.
I will also give it to Michael. Ooh. So thank you for putting that idea in my head. And I'm going to score this week's Coronation Street 3 not quite identical hairstyles out of 5. Yeah, Sorry. it wasn't that great a week for me, although it clearly had some very fun and exciting stuff in at least one of the storylines. So, that is it for this week's Street Talk.